like, oh no, should I call? How are
No,
you
shame,
doing?
shame, shame. No, I'm fine. I'm just getting used to the TikTok and
Yes, it can be a bit complicated. Thank you so much for joining us again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely a pleasure and a delight to engage. And I'm so glad you chose this topic. And this topic is so relevant for the present time and for each and every person, and to make our country work and to make humanity work.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, everybody, we are joined by Dr. Reddy. So, if you could please go and follow him so we can get as many followers for him so that we can actually see him when he's on live. I think he needs about 1,000 followers just to come on live. So, if you can, please follow Dr. Reddy so that whenever we have live, you can actually see him as well. So, thank you so much. Today, we are talking about human values. So, Dr. Reddy, what are human values? What is it? What's that all about?
Thank you very much, Prenisha, for this opportunity to be part of this program. I think let's get down to the right of the topic. Human values are part of every one of us. It is a humanness that brings out our kind of happiness, our resonance. But the most important thing is based on five things. The world, and it's the confluence and the intrinsic part of every religion of the world is based on human values, and those
Mhm,
values are there's truth, right action, peace, love, and non-violence. Those are the five principal values. And this
mhm,
and the saying goes that if you're truthful in the world, you'll do the right thing. If you do the right thing, you'll be at peace with yourself. If you have peace with yourself,
mhm,
you'll flow with love within yourself and out of yourself. And the last thing is that the most important thing within yourself is that and you'll have a spirit of non-violence, whereby you become the peaceful entity of not reacting to the world. Often in the world, Pranisha, we
mhm.
often like to react in the world, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I think that you should realize that the first value of truth, they said truth is only real if you take a principle and you put into practice and you
Mm,
factually report on it. That is absolute truth,
mm,
right?
yes.
Right. So basically, what we call is evidence based. So it's just not an expression, but it's a
Mm,
principle, it's a fact that you action it in life, and then you come back and say, you know what, Pranisha, I've done this. I give you an example, right? For
yes.
example, right? I'm as a dentist, for example, right?
Mm-hmm,
So if I go and see the patient and tell the patient that you need a filling, and then I show the patient on the X-ray what's wrong with the tooth, and then I actually do the filling. I come back and tell you, Francia, I've accomplished this task. Then I know it's absolutely truthful.
mm,
Yeah, right.
totally.
Yeah,
Mhm,
and yeah, the aspect of right conduct, right?
mhm,
It's about doing the right thing in the world, right? As the challenges we face in the world is about the right thing. And
mhm,
we all know we want peace within ourselves, peace within our world, and that places a healing within the world ourselves. And the
mhm.
fourth thing is that, this love. There's only one commodity in the world. The more you give, the more you get. Right?
Absolutely.
And right, it's higher than any bank balance of any bank account in the world is love.
Mm,
And love works on the principle of what you call geometric progression, right? So
mhm,
10 units
mhm.
of love that you give, you'll get 100 units back, and 100 units to change the world with love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I was saying, when you have human values, a lot of us can implement them when we're around, the temples or churches, or, sometimes we separate ourselves into categories. Like, we have the work life, then we have the home life, and then we have the spiritual life. And a lot of us tend to act differently in each aspect. So, how does one then implement human values at work when, sometimes we don't like the colleagues or the bosses and it's very difficult? How does one then implement human values at work or at home, even, to
Okay.
make sure that we're the
Okay.
same everywhere?
Okay, Pransha, there's a few elements to your question. Let's segment it a little bit, right? To
Okay.
contextualize. First thing is that why should we implement human values, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think let's understand that first, right? Why should?
Mhm. Mm,
the whole conundrum of that encapsulated this month of science and spirituality, right?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
let's look at that, how human values affects the inner spirit within yourself, right? I think that is very critical, right? So,
Yes.
so when you important to understand that when you affect these five values that I mentioned earlier,
Mm,
right, and
mm,
it generates a certain well-being within yourself,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
And we call that principle well-being within yourself. It's a principle of resonance,
mm,
right? A
mm.
resonance. So you
Yes.
resonate those five values within yourself, and
Mm,
that makes you feeling a sense of well-being. But the most important thing is that you see, if you take a photograph of you, if
mm-hmm.
you implement human values, you'll have a happy aura around you.
Yes, yes.
And as opposed to somebody who doesn't implement human values, you'll feel a
Mm-hmm.
certain degree of incongruence or like a negative vibration within you. So the
Yes.
point of view of the scientific aspect of that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you're in balance within yourself of doing the right things or the five values of expression,
Mm-hmm.
within yourself, you have a cell structure called the mitochondria, the powerhouse of your cell that
Yes.
tend to be in totally balance. And then your tissues, your muscles, your nerve conduction, your arteries and vein, everything has a positive effect within you, right?
Mm.
So,
Okay. Okay.
and what does the implementation of the value? Why is it important? It releases the thing, two chemicals within you. One is called the
Mm.
serotonin levels, and the other one is
Mm.
called the endorphin levels, right?
Yes.
Right. The serotonin levels relate to a biochemical that triggers a positive response in your brain function,
Mm.
right? And the
Mm-hmm.
endorphins, as you implement the values, it releases a certain percentage of endorphin. For example, you walk with a greater step, you walk with a greater smile
Yes.
within you, and that
Yes.
releases an endorphins in you, right?
Mm.
So you
Mm.
take it one step further, there's another chemical that's affected in this process. It's called the
Mm-hmm.
melatonin. So when you practice
Mm.
human values correctly in life, in daily life, you sleep better, you're at peace with yourself, right? You're more
Mm.
settled.
Yes.
Uh, right, people say that when I put my head on the pillow, right, I'm absolutely like a dream, and next morning I just wake up. And one
Yes.
of the things that affects it is a practice or implementation of the five human values, right?
Mm.
So that's the
Mm.
first part. And maybe you got any question to ask me on that part of the scientific aspects and then the well-being? You want to ask me any questions on that?
Um, from the scientific point of view, uh, there is a question of um, if somebody has conflicting values. So let's say there's some things that I find are part of human values, and there's something that somebody else finds part of their human values, and they conflict. As in, if I can give an example, let's say somebody is being hurt and now they're moving forward saying, no, if you don't scratch my back, I don't scratch your back. That's now my value. That's how you must value yourself, things like this. But we are saying, we should help everybody, we should be kind to everybody. There's conflicting values. Now, does the chemicals that have been released in the person, obviously, if I'm having happy chemicals being released, my outlook or my human values is going to then differ from somebody who has those chemicals that aren't being released, or they haven't had enough sleep, stuff like that. um, how do we now get somebody who hasn't had those happy chemicals being released? How do we then explain to them um, the importance of human values, or why they should implement them when they are so adamant in their own human values? If you get what I'm saying. I hope I'm making sense.
No. I'll try to answer that, as best as I can. So
Hmm.
the important thing is to understand that when there's two variables, right? And the example you gave, a mundane example, that I scratch your back, you scratch my back. But
Yes.
the principle is that there is a very good relationship of a symbiotic effect of life. I'll give you an example. example that you got a beautiful flower, and then the bees are attracted to the flower,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because of the fragrance of the flower and the lovely odor of the flower, and then bees often settle on happy fragrances. So they have a symbiotic relationship, right? So when you
Mm.
are a happy person, because you
Yes.
practice human value, people will be attracted to you. So, and
Mm.
whereby you don't necessarily have to do a favor for somebody because I did you a favor, you must do me a favor. It's not like that. The favor that you do is based on a fundamental aspect of the value system, is about being
Mm.
totally selfless and not selfish.
Mm.
I mean, Prenisha, when you approached me to come on the show, it
Yes.
was a beautiful expression of wanting me to be part of this program, and I selflessly said to myself, I'll give my time because I saw there's a higher purpose in life of what you're trying to do through your live streaming, and I want to be
Mm-hmm.
part of this. So
Mm.
when
Mm.
you realize that you are selfless and not selfish in the world, and that's the
Yes.
cardinal essence of the human values expression. And you find the more that you practice human values, you'll be more selfless. Because what happens is that we don't depend on the fruits of the action, but
Mm-hmm.
automatically when Pranisha practices the 5 unit, people get attracted to her,
Mm.
right? To say that I think Pranisha is a good person, I want to be around her. And people who
Mm.
don't practice values, you wouldn't want to be around them for a long time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. So that's the
Absolutely.
one end. Then the second thing about practice human values is that you generate, a feeling to say that I am different because I'm practicing human values. So we want more people in the world to implement these values. Then we're able to build our nation, build young people. Most important thing, we want to build relationships, and the relationships of life is based on these five values,
Mm.
right? And
Absolutely.
in action, what we call it is help ever, hurt never. So when you practice the
Mm.
five values, you're always helpful in this world, and you wouldn't want to hurt somebody,
Yes.
right? And when
Absolutely.
you
Mm.
add this expression, then you extrapolate a little further. You say, you know what? I want to love myself. I want to love this world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Mm-hmm.
want to serve the world. Whether through this interview process we're doing now, we're serving ourselves, we're serving the world, is love all and serve all. So when you have that kind of feeling within you of implementation of these values, you'll always be that beacon of light in your workplace, and even your work.
Mm.
You'll get better promotions, you'll be more efficient, because the reason for that, because you'll be more at peace with yourself.
Mm. Absolutely. I have a question about those happy chemicals that just popped in
Yes,
my mind. I hope I could ask the question. Um,
sure.
so when people say, you know, the mind doesn't know when, you know, what's actually real and what's not. And this is talking about manifesting. And people say those happy chemicals that are being released, um, they said that the same amount of chemicals get released, um, you know, whether you are happy or let's say the same amount of chemicals get released. Let's say I win a competition, and now I'm happy and all those things are firing in my mind. And the same amount of chemicals were released even if I'm just sitting in meditation and feeling gratitude, um, you know, feeling at peace, you know, all the values, nonviolence, and all of that. There's the same amount of chemicals that get released. Is that true? Or do more chemicals get released once we have the result, once we have the, you know, the cup or the medal? Or is it true that if I just sit in meditation and just think happy thoughts or just surround myself in love and light or, um, you know, being present, is the amount of chemicals the same in both that gets released?
Yeah, I'll give you, actually, it's a wonderful kind of expression that you're doing. I'll just give you an
Mhm.
example, right? With joggers who run and walk a lot, and jogging, it releases a
Yeah.
thing called endorphins,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes. Right.
endorphins are released for that particular time for a sense of
Mhm.
well-being.
Okay.
But when you stream your thought processes in that happiness of practice of the human values, it releases a sustained release chemical, and that sustained release chemical is called the serotonin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
serotonin levels is more
Uh-huh.
sustained release. The endorphin levels is for that particular time and moment of
I
well-being,
see. I
right?
see.
So
Okay.
to be that happy person all the time and
Mm-hmm.
in the framework of sustained release, so we always need to practice the values all the time. So when you are in
Mm-hmm.
meditation, it's
Yes.
fantastic. You generate a sense of well-being,
Mm-hmm.
endorphins, serotonin levels. But the
Mm-hmm.
greater effect of the serotonin levels is when you go into the workplace, like coming to the that next question that you asked me is that
Yes.
your values in your workplace, in your life, in the church,
Mm.
in the mosque, whatever it may
Mm.
be. So when
Yes.
you take the meditation process in your life, what you spoke about, and when you
Yes.
practice it in your workplace, but it's called constant integrated awareness. So we practice the value
Mm.
system constantly, but in awareness of doing the practice of the value. You see, the theory is always easy, but the
Yes.
critical sense of how do we practice it. So basically, when you're in the meditation posture, in your prayer place, or in the
Mm-hmm.
mosque, or in the church, but you take that experience of the higher force, you call it God, you call it universal energy, it doesn't matter, right? Right.
Mm.
But there's some universal force makes you feel good. But when you take that goodness in your centrifugal arena of your place of sanctity and you go into the
Mm.
workplace, you say that I'm Pranisha, right? When I go to work tomorrow, I want to be that best hubbly bubbly person that
Yeah.
I want to be the most efficient, the most proficient, and I want to share and ensure everybody around me works as efficiently as I am. And you must be
Mm.
happy all the time, but you only could do that if you practice something in thought, word, and deed in unity, purity, and harmony.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So what you think, right, and that's your thought processes, and what you say must be in harmony, and what you do must be in harmony,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. So that takes you into a place of unity of the five values within
Mm-hmm.
yourself, right? And the most important, it extends into into a purity and what you spoke about harmony. And it's important to
Mm.
realize that what happens is that in the unity, purity, and harmony, it generates something called the three P's, right? It
Mm-hmm.
generates from the purity which I spoke about, gives you the patience in life, right? And it gives you the perseverance to accomplish a task, right? So you never give up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have this challenge at the moment in the world and in workplaces, and we have what you call is the millennium generation, right?
Yes.
Right, the millennium
Mm.
generation want a lot of quick fix things. They want to be done today, and they don't have the patience, and you find that they tend to sort of flip jobs more easily, and they don't
Yeah.
tend to be remaining in one job at a particular time. They want to change occupation. So we find that the current so this millennium kind of consciousness is affecting the individuals as well as collectively. It affects people around them, it affects the workplace, and
Mm.
it affects the aspect of the most important thing is that the country, because we want to build a nation. To build this
Mm.
nation, we have for the long haul, right?
Yes.
Right. I'm not, and what you could do that is by taking this human value to say that I love South Africa, right? And how can I play a part in building South Africa, right?
Mm.
Or even the world community, right? We
Mm.
all we all are citizens of the global community. So it's a practice of the value system, right?
Mm.
And if we all share the same values, because these values crosses all religions of the world, it transcends all differences,
Yes.
right? And this there's a
Absolutely.
unity principle of practicing human values.
Mm. That's
You
true.
know, so basically what happens if any one of us, for example, right, let's say if all of us works for TikTok, for example, right,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, so in unison we are one voice, we all are practicing the same way, everybody on this call here today. So when we leave the call, we say, we heard about truth, we heard about right action, we heard about peace, love, and all, but how can I make it work in my life,
Mm.
right? I think that is the critical part. You only can
Yeah.
make it work in your life if you work it for yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that answers the
Absolutely.
two parts of your question.
Yes, it did. It did. Um,
Yeah, you know.
so next question. Okay. So I was thinking, some jobs require you to go against the human values. And so, like jobs like police officers, soldiers, where you have to be violent, it's part of your job description. Sometimes lawyers, you can't exactly be honest. You have to be like shifty and shady. So, how does human values then affect people like that whose jobs depend on you going against human values? So you have to be violent or you can't exactly be honest. How does it affect that person? And what can they do to incorporate human values if it is, part of their job? How do they do it so that they can still do their job and still implement human values? It's quite a big question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating question. Fascinating. I think this is coming down to practical, realistic aspects of application in life, right? Okay,
Yeah.
let's separate the work functions here, right? So
Mm,
I also like to talk about people who are in the army, people who are soldiers,
yeah.
and who are given this task. Okay, the task that soldiers and the in the army and the police force, they are the custodians of the society, of the population, and of the borders of the country. And
Mm,
so basically is that, according to, many philosophies in life, is that, each one has a certain attribute in life that has to be engineered, has to be implemented. The soldiers, the police officers, they've been giving that kind of task in life, and to say that according to many ancient scripture, to say that there is a familyhood of, let's say, soldiers or police officers or tailors, of dentists, whatever it may be, right? So you
mm,
find that in that scenario is a task. But the important thing is to realize that the soldiers and the police, when they execute a task, they're doing it for a higher purpose. They don't
mm,
execute tasks in terms of intent to, let's say, to kill somebody or to
yeah.
shoot somebody by intent. If they're doing it,
Mm,
they're doing it for a higher purpose, but they're unattached to it. That is a critical thing. So you're not attached to the task that you're given, right? But unattached to task for a higher purpose. I'm a soldier, I'm an army, so I love my country, and I will protect the borders of my country so nobody will take away the sovereignty of South Africa,
mm,
and
yeah.
I think that, so it, when you do this task, so you almost become disengaged from the mundane aspect, to say that, you know what, I may have killed 5 people, but it happened during the course of my duty. So that's a
Yes.
one. So let's come to the third attribute of the profession, called the lawyers. Right. So lawyers, as you say, unfortunately, if they are what we call criminal law, in criminal
Mm,
law, and on technicalities, they protect criminals, and they do this, right. So
mm,
obviously is that, my own personal feeling is that lawyers should not be involved in criminal law, but they should be protecting society from the criminals by playing the part to educate the so-called um, defendants who are defending from criminality, to transform their lives. I think
mm,
lawyers can change that around by being good practitioners of the 5 values, by transforming society, by educating the criminal to say that, you know what, and I think you have done this and this. I think
mm,
that manner of retribution society, I think, what can you do about it? So
mm,
you can go and toil in the soil, in right, and you could go every morning, clean the streets, and transform. I think lawyers can play that part. I think you could earn
mm,
money at the same time by doing the right thing in life. I mean, I'll give you an
yeah.
example, right? In the dental profession or the health profession, I could be over
Mm,
treating the patients to gain extra money, but that's not the right
yeah.
thing to do, right? So
Mm,
always give this kind of expression when I teach. I said, if you do it for your mother, you can do it for anybody else, right? So
yes.
like the lawyers and these people, I mean, I think that they must realize that the same criminals, if they're protecting, that one day can be affecting the family, can be affecting the mother. So I think the lawyers
Mm,
can play that part by having a different approach to criminal law, right?
mm,
I think it's
yeah.
important that that. So, but I think that it's important to understand that if you practice the human values, right, in terms of thought, word, and deed, you'll
Mm,
always be positively affected. And if you affect the person, like the lawyer affects the people, like the criminal, and to transform his life, right, and
mhm.
that person will be one less criminal in the world or one less fool in the world.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, right.
I think
Yeah, and I
the same
think
can be said about our politicians. I think the same. If politicians had to implement human values, I think we'd be a lot better in a better situation. Because I feel South Africa. Personally, I feel South Africa is a very abundant country and a very beautiful country. It's just a lot of us have forgotten our human values, and we value other things which don't have that much value. We value money, we value status, we value all things that it's not really worth valuing, and we've forgotten human values. And I think that's why, our politicians and our leaders who could be implementing human values, um, could do a lot for this country. I think we are a very abundant people, abundant country, but it's just we are valuing things that ought not to be valued. I don't know, just my opinion, but I think politicians could do something.
no, I think it's a fair opinion. I think definitely, and there's a saying that if politicians and if a government cannot rise to protect civil society needs to take responsibility, right,
Yeah.
to get
Mm,
government to act accordingly, and
mm,
that responsibility is not the rights. We have a responsibility to this country. The five elements of nature give us birth to this country. To take
mhm,
responsibility by how we can change politicians. Each one of us in civil service, each one in corporate world or in the private sector, everybody needs to do the right thing. And
mm,
collectively is that when the politicians see that society is rising to do the right thing, we
mhm,
all accordingly as politicians at the local level, what we know as the local councillors and any simple civil servant, and you go from a bottom up approach, and I think that's what needs to happen. But it only could
mm,
start with each individual to say that right. When I go to work, is that it's not just a piece of work. Right? I want to be the best, let's say, bank teller, right?
yes.
And I want to be the best reception. But it's by, for example, you don't necessarily have to oblige everybody, but you can talk obligingly, right?
Mm,
And they say that your words must be sweet as nectar, your heart must be soft as butter, and your mind must be cool as the moon. So if you follow
mm,
these dictums of life, and then you can say that in your workplace, I want to be the happy person at work because I want to be everybody else to be happy because I want to share happiness. I want to share productive. If all of us are more productive at work, so the company benefits, we'll benefit, we'll get an extra salary at work, and then you show your bosses, you show the everybody that we can get this country right by all of us collectively doing the right thing. So it
mm.
starts in minuscule small ways, right? I mean, like to say that Rome was not built in a day, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the saying is that you take one step towards me, I take 10 steps towards you. Take 10
Mm,
steps to take 100 steps. So human value is based on geometric progression. So if the five
mm,
values are practiced every day, for example, in 10 units, you'll get 100 units of reciprocal positive vibration. So imagine that
mm.
even in a workforce of 100 people, if everyone practices in 10 units, you'll get 10,000 units of values back to you,
Mm. That's
right?
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what does happen? The whole environment of your workplace, everybody will want to come to work, and everybody
Yeah.
say, you know what? and I don't think I want to work from home because I'm happy to go to work. We all
Yeah.
are a teamwork, and what's the success of life? Success of life is teamwork. And what's the
Yeah.
success of human values? Is a practice of the five values. And people often say that the values is based on the five fingers. If the five fingers clap together, get together, five and five makes 10,
Mm.
right? Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So there's a collective energy, and there's a saying that unity is strength, right?
Mm.
Right. In this expression of 100 people that, for example, who work at a particular branch of the bank, right? Right. If 100 people there collectively work together, we'll have a tremendous energy, productivity,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think that it's about, though we all are different people from 100 different homes, but we come
Mm.
together. It's a unity and diversity,
Mm-hmm.
right? We
What?
have differences.
Right. Sorry. Um, like with you talking about us, being diverse and we've all gone through different things and stuff like that. I just wanted to ask, we've been taught if you do good, you get good. And then people are brought up believing in that if you do good, you get good. And then sometimes we do good and then bad things still happen. So people have this feeling that, oh no, because I'm a good person, bad things happen to me. And they sort of get discouraged from using human values because now something's bad has happened. Maybe it's a trauma response or they've been triggered. But what do you say to people who don't feel like they need to implement human values because it's like, why should I? People have that attitude because they've been hurt or something like that, and they've been discouraged from using human values, from being kind, non-violence and all of those things. um, what do you say to those people who have been discouraged? What can we say to them um, to make them feel better, I suppose?
Yeah, no, I think this is a very challenging, a very realistic expression that you highlighted. I think we must understand that the principle of, if you do good, you will get you will get good.
Mm,
And the problem is that oh, we measure life sometimes, from the, I mean, Freudian theory in psychology.
mm,
Everything is measured from the present time. But
yes.
we all have to understand that in this world, that we are recycled human beings, and many of
Mm,
the scriptures have highlighted this thing that we're born 8.4 million times in the world, from a
mm,
unicellular being to a multicellular being of the world. And
mm,
even as human beings, they say the cause and effect of life is, it's about the effect of what they call the process of the laws of nature, of reincarnation. These are kinds of things that dwells in different kind of philosophies of life. So if we
mm,
measure our life, that according to 8.4 million times, so we don't know what we did in our past lives and what happened in the event of our life, and
yeah.
why do we have to go through this. But I can tell you
Mm,
from my own personal experience that there's many things that in life I've been challenged many times myself, that where I want to do good, I still do good, and I still feel people have been not so good to me, I've been negative towards me. How do I handle it myself personally?
yeah.
The first thing is that to realize that I must continue doing good, because it doesn't affect me if other person doing bad, but I must do the good things right. Because at the end of the day, I'm responsible to myself. I want to be that at peace with myself, being and a happy being. When I put my head on the pillow, as I said earlier, I want to
Yeah.
have this dream sleep with myself, right?
Mm,
But if
mm,
other people react negatively against you, it is their problem. So do not absorb their energy and to bring you down. In life, I always say you must ascend. I always give the example. Do you walk front or do you walk backwards? Right?
yeah.
Right? Right? In
Yeah.
life, you always walk forward. You always be a forward thinker. But the
Mm,
critical thing is to remember, it is a power of now. There's a book called, and Eckhart Tolle written the book, The Power of Now. To realize
yes.
that the most important event is this second, the same. So what that person has done to you, or whatever it is, that my experience, it doesn't go far in life. They eventually implode, they absorb the negative energy, and the sad thing is about it, when they get affected, you'll cry for them.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
That's so true.
Right? Yeah. So I think you must realize that in life, for example, you're born at 1 year, the average lifespan of today's time is 96 years old, and this is what the average lifespan. The lifespan is getting longer and longer in the world because
Yeah.
of modern day lifestyle. You will realize
Mhm.
that I'm a marathon runner in my life. I'm here to live my life from 1 to 96, but I want to be the best representation of myself. And the only
Mm,
way you could do that is do not absorb somebody else's vibration. Right? You
mm.
create almost like a barrier around it. You know, the wonderful thing you did last week was a healing of light. So you
Yeah.
almost circle yourself as self with a fence around you. And that
Mm,
fence around you, Pranisha, is
mm,
that the five values. And right, and it ends up with the crystallization of the love of light within you. And once you
mm,
create a fence, so no matter whatever other person talks about you, tells about, discourages you, you must be on the main line. Like the train never gets derailed; it's on the main line, right?
yeah.
Right, and we sing the song that God is on the main line, right? So we keep our trajectory on the main line and do not get derailed. If the other people around you want to be negative, say no problem, you be negative, but I will not absorb your energy. I want to be in the positive traction of the five human values, which is on the main line, right?
Yeah.
And the most important thing is to understand that the world is made of different beings, different temperaments. There's a diversification of people in the world that will not change. But the most important thing that you're in control of your own change, right? The only thing that's
Mm,
constant in life is change, and you're responsible for your own destiny. So you create the buffer around you, right? And
mm,
the only way to do it is by constantly reminding yourself, I'm the being of light of the world. I'm the
mm.
light of the world, and the light of the world is in me.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh,
Anybody, the viewers who are watching, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments so that we can ask Dr. Reddy. So if you have any questions on Facebook as well, please write them in the comments so that we can ask him while he's here and we can pick his brain. So just a comment. I think it's good to be surrounded by people that practice the same values to keep you going.
yes,
I think so
I think
too. I
that's
think
very
so
important.
too. Mm. I think it's important to surround yourself with people who are uplifting. Um, and I think if you're surrounded by people, sometimes you're surrounded by, family, friends, colleagues who aren't uplifting. But I think it's important that you stay strong in your human values, and maybe be the one who is the uplifter. I think that's important if you're not surrounded by people who can uplift. But I think it's important to like Dr. Reddy said, there's unity in strength. Um, and I think if you don't have people around you, you can be that person. Or I think you can even ask your higher power, you can ask your spirit team, your ancestors, your guides, send me to people who can uplift me, who also have and implement human values. And I think um, your team or your higher power or a god or goddesses, they will send you or direct you or guide you to those people. Um, you know, ask and you shall receive, I think is the saying. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Reddy?
Yes, yes, I love what you said. I love it. You know, and I always believe, the higher force and our Creator sends us two angels with us. One is on the right, one is the left, and the
Mm,
angel guides our path, right? And they
mm,
always say, never deviate from your true path of life. And the true path of your life is what? Is being the happy being of the world, is to make a difference to myself in the world, to make a difference to the world around me, right? And the same, you don't have to necessarily have to mix with people that you don't like to mix, but you always be full of humility, full of reverence, full of respect, and the most important thing, always be the humble being of the world, and you don't have to be caught up in the expression of the world to say that, you know what, that I need to have the best car or the best clothes, but is to have the best mindset.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
you know what they say simple living and higher thinking,
yes.
right? And the higher thinking is a unity process, right? Is just the love of the is a love of it's the love of yourself, the love of the creator, you know?
Mm, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for your wise words, Dr. Reddy. So motivational to listen and learn. Yes, thank you so much for joining us and for doing this and for giving us your time and your wisdom as well. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I just wanted to ask one last question. So tomorrow I'm having an event and we're talking about a very deep topic, sensitive topic. So sorry if I trigger y'all. But tomorrow we are talking about very deep depression and we're talking about suicide. And when people are in so deep depression, I think a lot of the time we have forgotten our own value, human values and the value of humans and the value of oneself. I know it's out of topic kind of, but do you have any wisdom or stuff you'd like to share when somebody is going through dark times? um what can we encourage them with? What can we tell them? What can we share with them other than ourselves and our healing and our energy? um is there anything you would like to say on the topic or share with somebody who's in depression?
Yes, certainly. The first thing I realized that there's always help out there, and the
Yes.
people are willing to help, right? And
Mm,
right, that people like yourself and the show, yeah, healers, and the people. There's a lifeline, and now there's trauma counseling and the trigger. And in fact, at some point in time, I would like to invite Letitia and Mahesh Pillai, who are involved in trauma counseling, right?
yes.
And on a global scale, I'll bring them on the
Mm,
show, and we could delve into the topic. But
yes.
in a suicide expression over
Mm,
there, there's often a feeling of desperation, a feeling of I'm worthless in this world. I have nothing to contribute in this world. But I
mm,
can rest assure you, there is hope in this world. And
mm,
and when in this and the only reason that I decided to live in this country, because I love this country, I love the people around me, and South
mm,
Africa is one of the friendliest places in the world. And
absolutely.
despite our challenges, right,
Yeah.
right, we got smiles of people, and you could go up to any place, anywhere, and have a conversation. And not many
Absolutely.
parts of the world you could do that. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that people who are on this brink of this so-called suicidal effect to realize
Mm,
that my dear fellow souls, there is hope, and
mm,
there is love in this world, right?
mm,
And you just sort of cut yourself of negativity and look for the light, right?
yeah.
And there's a saying is that how does a flower grow and blossom? It grows in space. Get yourself away from a negative space to a space whereby you can blossom and be like the flower that blossoms
Mm,
in space. Do not get
mm.
constricted.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna write that down for tomorrow's event. So please. Okay, yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is a pretty heavy topic, but I think it's something we need to talk about because a lot of people don't know that there's help there or don't know that we can talk about it and you'll actually feel better when you talk about it and release it and things like that. So thank you so much for sharing for our topic for tomorrow. Um,
Yes.
it's something I can share with everybody as well. But thank you so much for joining us. Is there any questions? Does anybody want to ask Dr. Reddy anything else on Facebook as well? Do you have any comments or questions? Let's just enjoy the wise words. Yes, absolutely. There are no questions. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think next
Thank
week,
you.
Dr. Reddy, we're going to be talking about selfless service. I think that's a good topic to talk about next week.
Yes, excellent, excellent. I love that. I'm very passionate about that, and I think that it takes human values into action.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Because a lot
you
of us
know.
don't know how to put it into action, to be honest. We're just like, okay, what does that mean? But I think to actually give people physical ways of putting it into action and bringing it into the 3D. I think that would be a really interesting topic, an eye-opening topic. So that's what's happening next week, you guys. Same time, same place. We're going to be talking about selfless service next week. So thank you, Dr. Reddy, for your time and for your energy and your wisdom. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Pranisha, for the great interaction, and I loved every moment of it. Have a great evening. Take care. Right?
Thank you.